reserves and stuff, but what had happened, CPR and CNR got caught in that trap too because they were on federal lands and they had to pay tax as a result of all these decisions. So I see that kind of similar challenge, approaching us, and it's creating some difficult conversations in our own camp. So I just put that out there for a thought, to a strong economic strategy is very helpful. To not that it should guide your land use planning, but it certainly would prevent some problems in the future.
Colonel Chief, Spokesperson Ward, and Chief Morris. I know that CTFN is certainly a leader in the economic development arena, and our other nations, of course, look to you as leaders to help guide some of our long-term goals and short-term goals as well. There was a bit of an oversight. I've been provided a note that the work plan and briefing note was not printed. It's being printed right now for your review, so apologies for that. Next slide, please. Language and culture, Hakustiyi. So this is one of the most important ones because it is the item that we hear the most feedback on. Our communities and our leadership consistently bring forward the importance of culture and language and the focus of our nations on revitalizing those things that are so important to us. We have heard that it's important to have gatherings with elders and youth and language program students, and so those are items that are actually today, yay, one of the best parts of today is we get to do that, and we will continue with a focus on creating events that will bring forward our elders and our youth, and we will continue to capitalize on using language so that our people can hear that more and we can have that brought forward as part of what we do on a daily basis. Another action is the integration of language and culture throughout all of our programming. So note that this is draft. These are some ideas that we as the steering committee pulled together. We are asking for your input. If something doesn't look right, please feel free to be transparent with us and give us that feedback so we can incorporate it. What we thought of at the outset is, in terms of integration of language and culture, place names. We know that's a really important piece. We are looking for recommendations to school language programs. We would like to support existing language programs that are already operating. We're looking for language legislation to be developed, for continued genealogy research, and a negotiation glossary, clinketized terms. So in agreements that we may be drafting or going forward with, it's really important to have our language reflected right in there. It brings a lot more strength to the agreements and a lot more inspiration to the people who are viewing those. It also tells the other outside governments what is important to us. So we know that's something that we want to focus on and have easy to hand for the negotiating purposes as well. The other item that we heard from the last meeting that we had that was extended to all of our nations is to focus on healing strategies. So we know and we hear and are reminded continually of the state that some of our people are in, our most vulnerable citizens who are suffering from all kinds of things. And we hear from our elders, from our youth, and from all of our citizens that a focus on healing strategies is really important and that we can't move forward unless we pay attention to that. We thought that one of the action items there would be really helpful to incorporate our health and wellness departments, and we'd like to focus on information sharing. We have ideas of citizen demographics and baseline data. We'd like to revisit existing programs and what services they may offer. We're talking also about social assistance program alignment with employment transition and community beautification programs. So those terms actually came from some existing services and programs that are already occurring within other nations. We talked about CTFN specifically and some of the programming that is offered to try to provide jobs and to give jobs in a place where people, we're really trying to meet them where they're at, rather than forcing people to go through a process that may not be accessible or available to them, where they feel alienated from being able to get jobs that might be fitting their lifestyle or their skill set at the time. We would like to focus more on aligning with the programs that are available and perhaps just adopting some of those in other communities. So where something might be successful for one community, we see no reason not to use those same ideas and piggyback off of each other's strengths. So that's the idea. With the collaboration of the health and social and wellness departments, is to share information so they can see what the strengths are, what programs are working really well, so that our citizens might be able to have some immediate and short-term benefit to the work we're doing. We want to be able to go forward to the community and say, yes, we're working on jurisdiction and legislation, but have no fear, we are also doing these really important things on health and social, so we're paying attention to the culture and to the overall wellness of our citizenship. We know that traditional knowledge and traditional medicine programming is available and has been done not just in this area, but all across the country. And we'd like to put more focus and attention on supporting how those programs can get off the ground and be more available if they're not already. Communications, relationships, lateral violence workshops have had a high success in other places. And we know that our communities are focusing in different areas on those things. But in talking to citizens, a lot of them describe many of the same issues. There's a lot of communications issues, how we talk to each other in our communities, in our homes, in our workplaces, and with those that we are closest to. And that can be a focus for our health and social and wellness and culture, is how we can clinketize some of the programming that is already being offered, how we can focus on giving our people, our most vulnerable people, some of the tools, skills, and language to continue to develop in the healthiest way they can. And of course, land-based learning opportunities, that's highly critical. So we're also exploring other ways of having land-based events in between our nations, and we're looking forward to offering more of those over the summer and into the fall. Any questions or comments?
Hello.
Go ahead, Dwayne.
We can hear you.
Okay. No, it looks great. Just the one comment that in 2006, in regards to language and culture at the Dakka Elders Gathering, that one of the things they talked about was the Hakusti celebration, bringing our three nations together to celebrate our inland Tlingit culture. Another thing they talked about was immersion camps for the whole inland Tlingit nation, following the seasons, like one per season, and rotating it between the communities, and maybe even having one in Alaska. So it's just that coordination as well between language revitalization between our three nations. We have so few fluent speakers, and we need to work together closely to preserve our language and pass it on to the next generations. When TTC was developing our language and culture implementation plan, we had such tremendous support far across the map, and our brothers and sisters from the coast as well. It was just amazing, all of us coming together, even though it was a Teslan plan, it's a follower plan. Everyone came together to develop something that was just amazing. So I really look forward to that continuing, working together to save our
Thank you very much. I appreciate those comments. One of the items on this topic is support for existing language programs. I know that Children of the Taku is a language revitalization program. They're a small grassroots society. They are actually presenting here today, this afternoon. And so it's a good opportunity for us to get to know them if we don't, and to talk to them about this important need. And immersion camps have been offered in the past, and is something that we will speak with them about, hopefully continuing and providing access to all of our communities, which it's currently open to. Any other comments here before Spokesperson Ward?
Thank you. TRTFN is also recognizing the opportunity for the jurisdiction on children and family moving to the forefront. So that could really strongly impact or support, you know, language, culture, and Hakustiyya things, because it's all about the way we bring up, how we become families and bring our children up, and so on. So I'm just hoping that some attention be given to that and monitor those developments and include them in future reports.
Thank you, Spokesperson Ward. As TRT, John was commenting on the Child Welfare Framework Development table that TRT is going to be engaged in. And certainly we'll be looking to our neighboring and Land Tlingit nations to help guide us in some of what they've learned and some of the successes that they have in their own development of such legislation and jurisdiction. Any further comments on this topic?
I just wanted to say. Things that we're doing in the area of healing in our community, or looking at health in our community. You know, sometimes we tend to look at the outside world and bring people in to help us to move things along. But if we can begin to utilize more of our resources within DACA, I think then it definitely will help us to really build a good, strong base for the work that we need to do. You know, and if I just have a suggestion in regards to looking at the integration of our language and culture, like, you know, I think like in the part where you mentioned develop a collaborative framework for a healing strategy for DACA, I think being collaborative in our language and culture too is going to be really key, because I look at what's happening over with our brothers and sisters at CTFN in regards to their work with carving and all of that work that's related to that. And I look at what's happening over in TRT in regards to just working with the young people in regards to culture and language and art. And, you know, I just think that the collaboration that can happen and the result of that would be so awesome. Like, I think about the immersion camps. If we can develop a program that's reflective of all our desires and really have them strategically throughout the year, you know, with that probably would coincide with our seasons, and I think that would be something that would be really positive. It'd be targeted not only just for younger people, but for our elders and our middle age as well. I think would be really a good focus, and I think this is just so good to hear today, you know, and I just can't help but feel positive about what's being presented to us. So Gumlachish.
Gunalchish, any other comments? Next slide. Sorry, I missed one.
I want to make a comment regarding the issue around language. Just based on what I've seen over the years and how it's deteriorated, we're now at a stage where I think it's really critical. The younger generation is having better access to the language than we had when we were growing up. It's amazing what they're learning online. We talk about immersion camps being one way, but it'll also allow us to look at the cultural component as well. The goal is to set up a rebuilding of the nation, and language is pivotal to identification around a nation. The really interesting when you look at from the government of Yukon perspective, you look at the Education Act they have in place. It's those people that actually will certify our language instructors. It's not our governments. Can't believe it. Can't believe we have a government who's foreign to us, actually telling us who our instructors should be and how they're certified. For me, it really is, you know, it's one of the most important areas that we have to fundamentally change. We now have a new Minister of Education in Yukon, minority government. I think the leadership should maybe consider developing a plan with respect to how you're going to approach the minister and have those changes made. Because the Education Act, the way it's described, will certify who our instructors are in our schools today. And we're subject to that law until we pass our own Education Act. That's what's really sad. Just regarding the issue around health and social one, the importance of the nation. Just before we leave here, I want to share with you some of the discussion that we've been having, the Yeti have been having. We're looking at setting up not so much a camp, we're looking at coming together with the Yeti from Taka River Tlingit and Yeti from Natasihini and the Yeti from Tesla coming together sometime this summer, probably around July, hopefully, where we can sit down and understand who we are as a clan, what the right protocols should be, and the whole issue around who we are as a clan. And it started in Teslin where we were having this discussion, and it's amazing how it come together, because I was talking to James this morning and he was telling me that we should have this meeting. We should have this time together. That's exactly what we've been talking about. And for me, that's part of the nation. When we talked about the border issue, and we didn't know any borders. We still don't recognize those borders. So I thought I'd just offer that up to leadership, that we will be beginning to work closer together, both at clan level and hopefully at the leadership level within Dakar, so we can actually move our agenda this time around. We're really at a critical stage in our evolution. It's good to see the direction that's been received so far. Some of the work that's following up on some of the direction that was received, I think, is so positive. So those are the comments I want to make this morning about these really important issues. And for me, language is really important. I think just from my family alone in Teslin, there are probably maybe 7 or 8 fluent speakers. We lost a couple last summer, and huge loss, huge loss. I was sharing with James this morning, if you don't mind, James, I'll talk about some of the direction I received in the past, or the importance of our heritage and what we should be embracing. We were negligent and we let slip. We shouldn't let that happen again. Some of the songs, some of the understandings around what's really important for us. You know, and for me, we now have an important opportunity before us to come together and embrace some of the areas that are common to us. So those are the comments I want to make this morning. Gunchish.
Mark, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I just was inspired by my brother Richard here. And so I want to just sort of speak, not necessarily as a steering committee member or negotiator or anything like that, but just as a Deshiton, right? And I looked to my brother Alex and whatnot, and I think what Richard touched on was a really important thing. One of the things that helped us with the Deshiton, you know, back when, you know, and we were struggling, because every clan, everyone will struggle at some time. And that's when that the teachings kick in to say, how do we support each other? How do we look after each other? And I remember Matthew Fred came up, because Matthew Fred was Kasha de Henry. He was the main spokesperson for all the Deshiton all up and down the coast and inland. And we really learned a lot from him, right? And it strengthened up those relations. And I know that, you know, especially with Teslin, with each of us as our communities, we need to have more of that clan interaction. Do you mean, because it's the clans, you know, like in Yedi, the Deshiton, Dakluedi, those clans that it's not just the governments, the three governments that have to work together, it's those clans that have to rebuild that relationship. And it might make sense, you know, maybe the next time we start looking at how do we have joint clan meetings between all the nations. And maybe we could invite people like Garfield George. Garfield George right now is the spokesperson, Deshiton spokesperson that's in Angoon that speaks, and invite him up, right? And I know there's other ones, other clans might want to consider that, where we can invite, you know, some of them, you know, these people up and just have those discussions. I know that, I remember Mom and Auntie Angela and them used to sit us down, in the clans saying, you guys got to know who you are. Right? And they would tell us the clan stories, right? This is the clan stories, here's the clan songs. And just to go back to what Richard's saying, language is more than just a program in school, right? It's about how we use it, what the songs are, how, you know, these types of things. So I'd make a suggestion that, you know, for consideration, that we maybe look at, you know, another gathering similar to what we're having a storytelling here, is to invite so that we can have clan gatherings that, you know, hopefully we'll be past COVID then, and we could, you know, have more clan gatherings between the communities, and even, you know, between Angoon, or on the coast, not Angoon, but the coast. Leads to the other thing, one of the suggestions, and I think it would be good to get some input from leadership. I mean, there was a suggestion, we have a relationship, you know, Dakar is inland, right? Those that came over, looked and came over the mountain. But we have that relationship with the coast. And I know over the years, we've worked with the Tlingit Haida, and many of us are registered with the Tlingit Haida. And one of the thoughts that came up was for us to investigate, should we become a chapter? Is that something that Dakar should be looking at, right? To be a chapter of the Tlingit Haida sort of organization. I looked online, and right now we're recognized, but we're not necessarily a chapter or a voting or a part of the governing body. And that should be given some consideration. Is that something that Dakar would also begin to look at, as well as with the language and that relationship? So relationships are really important, and how do we expand and develop those relationships? I think it's important. So I just want to say those two things, and I think I look to Alex, and I think we should talk about, maybe our clans should, you know, between the communities, just get together and have those discussions. Thank you.
I think that's a great idea also. Are you done with your presentation, or do you want to carry on? Are you done?
There's just one section left, and it can be very brief.
Okay. Was there any other questions or comments in regards to that? No? Okay.
Just want to quickly say very, very positive in regards to some of the suggestions around having these clan gatherings amongst the clans within our communities. And I think that's really, really super positive, and it really goes back to that historical relationship that I spoke of earlier on in terms of our people traveling back and forth between our communities and looking at reestablishing those routes in a sense, in terms of looking at our ability to be able to gather as clans. I think because we definitely we don't know everything about that we need to know about our, let's say, for example, my Ducklawady clan. Like we do, there's lots of things that we need to learn and come to understand. Some about our stories of our clan. I just wanted to share with you. Just we were over in I think it was Haynes, and one of our members, our Ducklawady members, just a young person, was we were getting ready to go on to dance, and an elder from one of the Alaskan communities saw this young person going by with a killer whale on the back of their blanket, and he said so he just kind of asked, he said, so you belong to the killer whale clan? And the young person said yes, and he said, well, where are you from? And he said, the person said, I come from Teslin, Yukon, that's in Canada. And he said, oh yeah. And the next question he had for that young person, he said, so you have killer whales there too? He said, and I found that interesting when I think about it now. And it's interesting that we about the fact about where we live today, and we were able to carry that crest on our backs into the interior, and we still maintain that connection today. And I think that's something that's very significant about who we are, where we find ourselves today, and the honor and remembrance that we have about our ancestors. And I think that's something that's very important. And I just wanted to mention that. And I totally support the clans being able to get together, and as mentioned. And I think that we're really offer up a lot of knowledge for us, and really help us to grow and to really rekindle our relationships amongst ourselves. So Gumlachish for that.
Thank you, Chief Morris. Okay, John, did you have something to say?
No, I'm going to wait till
It's
the
done? Okay.
presentation's completed.
Okay, Chantal.
Thank you. So the final section is on legislation, and that is simply for us to develop common legislation. There is an action item of preparing a concept paper or memo describing concurrent lawmaking authorities in BC, including recommended next steps. The concept paper should include implications of individual First Nations developing their own legislation on common legislation by DACA. So a wordy way of us saying that we need to explore the various elements involved in taking up our own jurisdiction, in developing joint legislation and what that means for each of us, as well as within the larger entity of DACA. This is a treaty legal working group item, and we have tasked them to develop the concept paper. We would certainly need to require the use of our legal teams, and there's lots of parallels between our treaty tables here. So this would be an item where we certainly collaborate and overlap with treaty. And that pulls it together for the work plan for now. Ganalshish.
Okay, thank you. So the next agenda item is the rights letter from Stephen Phillips. Yep, yep.
Just to say, in regards to that have occurred that requires some work, you know, and I think that's something that could be a part of that, you know, looking at wildlife management, for example. I know that from time to time we incorporate voluntary closures in different areas for moose harvesting, and at times, sometimes we find that some of our citizens don't necessarily follow that, and so what happens is, as mentioned earlier, is that sometimes these things slip and nothing happened, or there's no repercussions for that. So I think as part of that, I would think that it would be good if we had something that is representative of DACA, that where we could bring individuals that have done that, where we can bring them before, let's say, our peers and have some discussion with them about the whole purpose of voluntary closures and all of that, and really kind of gaining some understanding from that particular individual on why they went ahead and did that. And it could be, you know, their inability to access other areas. It could be for various reasons, but being able to have that as an opportunity to help to change behaviors or just gain further in perspectives on various things like that. You know, I think this legislative piece that maybe doesn't necessarily have to be so technical in a sense, but if we can begin to establish a process where we can help our people to better understand why we do certain things within our clans or within our government or within our community, and if we can hold them accountable for these things, then this may be an area where we can bring together a group of our members and be able to begin to establish something where we can help our people just to be more proactive, more supportive of the various things that we've decided to do within our governments, within our community, within our clans, and really help us to begin to have a more positive outlook for where we're heading. But I just think this legislation piece is one part. Just don't want us to get too caught up in the technical stuff, but if we can look at it from a more of a general perspective, I think that would be also helpful as well. So, but thank you very much for this presentation of this work plan. I think it's pretty positive, identifies a lot of the key issues that we originally decided upon, and it really adds a lot of components that we have to definitely consider and further talk about.
Thank you, Chief Morse. Any other comments? No? John? It's hard to look right beside.
Thanks again, Chief Linda. I just want to really maybe underscore some of Eric's comments and a bit of Richard's as well. The importance of maybe giving a little bit of attention to those things as a way of empowering our efforts going forward. I really believe strongly in this historical land use and occupation concept. And whatever history, or like Chantel's earlier comment about continuing the work that our ancestors and elders left us, and the things that they had put in place, the principles they gave us to work with, and so on. So it's always ongoing. And I always think about the empowerment. How do we empower this work? And I think those things are the truth, the facts that we researched, those histories. It's the truth. And I remember the previous chief, Sylvester Jack, I always mentioned, when you stand on that truth, that's what's really going to bring us forward and settle things for us. So, and I think Eric brings up a good thing, and there is some interest, particularly among the Ishkitan people in Outland, to learn more about protocols. They want to learn about themselves and the right way to do things. And I did approach Sam in Teslin and let him know about the interest. So we talked, but we never put anything in motion because we got to do things in a respectful way. We don't want to upset any apple carts as we go along. And I'm glad that we're having this conversation in open now. So I'm hoping to bring at least this particular one on our next CTC meeting and discuss this, but how we support that. Because over in Atlin, we're just in Crow Wolf, there's no house, kind of speak. So we're a bit of in a transition, maybe, you know, to get some consistency throughout all of Tlingit Nation. So it's really helpful to hear this stuff. Constitution.
Okay, thank you. Any other? TJ?
Thanks again. Again, I'm just observing, but there's some comments that were made here that we think, or at least I think, that we could possibly work on to bring us together. One of the things that I haven't heard about, talking about amongst our people, is how do we protect us? How do we protect our land? Right now we're having trouble with borders south of us and question about north of us. And we are told that we are not going to be able to settle anything until we settle those differences. But I think we can bypass that. If we can go to the government or go to the negotiators with a plan to protect ourselves firefightingly, we know that we can go 25, 30 miles inside of a border to fight a fire. So that's our in. We put together a team that allows us to go to each other's territory to fight a fire. We protect ourselves. We protect our water. We start putting together things that put our people out on the land to protect those things. I mean, I helped put together a hydro project, and the good thing that I found about it is that we just barely beat those beavers to damming that river. That's the only thing we got out of it, other than the fact that we are getting money for electricity. But to work on the land, there was not that much. The hassle that I got from the people uptown is, how many people are you hiring? And then when it's over, there's only 3 of us working. We caught heck. You put in a multi-million-dollar project and all you got is 3 people working? So I started looking at that. If we're going to start putting in projects and working on our project, just how many of our people can we put to work? One of the things I really enjoyed when I was flying across Canada is the workings of people actually working to protect the land. The firefighters, Ducks Unlimited, stuff like that. Those guys that are actually doing that for their life's work. They go out trapping all winter, and then in the summertime they go firefighting. That's their job. Up here, we've got minerals, we've got gas, oil, all these different things that we can go in, we can extract and become rich. But where does it leave our people if they can no longer go out on the land? I think if we're going to work together, we should look at protecting our people and our land as a basis to start. Economically, we know we can do it. But now, how do we step back and take the time and look at the people that are coming in? The ones that are lost, the ones that never came back from residential school, the ones that were sent away, never brought back. Those are our people too, and we need to bring those back.
Yeah.
So how do we do it? We need to attract them back.
Okay.
We need to have them so that they fight for our land.
But it didn't say he was here.
I'd rather have a young person come in and slam the table and say, I want to be a firefighter, than come in and slam the table and say, where's my welfare check? So how do we set it up for that? Abitibi, or the big corporations in Canada that have leases, that they have for years and years and years so they could make pulp. It was the First Nations in Manitoba that went ahead and pushed the government that Abitibi has to have their own firefighters to take care of it. Now the government can come along to us and say, you want that protected land? Protect it. Forest firefighters won't come into your territory anymore unless you have an agreement. So let's make that agreement. Put our people to work on both sides of the land. Protection is going to be key. Population is going to increase exponentially. Great time. We're going to have more trucks on the road. We're going to have more stuff being taken out. We need to let our people know that, yes, you can protect if you're a firefighter. Yes, you can protect if you clean up a spill response. Yes, you can protect if you have to go avalanche control. It's our territory. Let's start qualifying our people to do just that. Protect us any way we can. Use all the information, everything you have, whether it be a helicopter or whether it be whatever. Let's start looking at protecting. Because our borders, if it's not solid, we're going to lose it. Because there's a lot of people that are going to be, in the next few years, that are going to be coming into this country. It's too attractive. We know that the science says that right now, the card that we have in our pocket is one of the most valuable cards in the world. So how do we protect ourselves? My suggestion, let's look at protecting the land. Gunishish.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Chantel?
I'm really appreciating those comments and just want to draw our attention to the next agenda item, which is on assertion. And so I think in talking about legislation, although I skipped over that quite quickly on the work plan, it is the focus for how we would govern our entire traditional territory. And I do know that we had a meeting in Atlin where Carcross and Tesla negotiators came to present to TRT. And it was really not super well understood about what kinds of structures or systems we could use to assist us to govern our whole traditional territories. Previously, the idea was that we would focus on land selection or smaller areas of which to govern. We're way beyond that now. With the new landscape of how governance goes and the opportunities available to Indigenous governments, we are certainly not looking at just piecemealing out our territory. So I think that's one of the messages that we need to bring back to our communities, is that through nation rebuilding and through treaty and through ongoing collaboration of our nations, we'll be looking to govern our whole territory. And those are the concrete steps we'll be taking to move forward and to capitalize on the opportunities available to us today. So it's not just looking at site-specific ways of governing, it's looking at these larger governance structures. So as we talk a bit more and move into the next agenda piece, that's what you'll hear. And there are lots of terms that might be very government-oriented. And so for any suggestions that you might have about how we can tweak the message to bring back to the community so that what we're saying is more well understood, of course, we really look to you for that guidance. Ganashish.
Thank you, Chantel. So we have Stephen Phillips on the line, or I guess I should go around the room first and see if anybody else has any concerns, questions? Okay, Stephen? Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Well, I'm Stephen Phillips. I don't know everyone in the room, but been working with Tesla now for TTC for about 20 plus years, and as a lawyer and as their in-house legal counsel, focused in the Yukon, of course. And I note from the participant list that Dave, Joe, and Darren Lease are also participating, and so invite them to assist me at any time. And what I understand I'm doing is to review and present and review the assertion letter, which Lynn advises me has been circulated. Everyone has a copy, so don't need to share it. Although I could, I think, if I need to. But is that correct?
Is it? It's there? Yeah, it's here. We have it.
Okay. So should I just launch into discussing it and reviewing it?
Oh, I'm not on. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Well, this I was asked Teslin to Dave Keenan to become involved to help write this letter. And that's sort of been my central role, is to try and find language that reflects the instructions and the inputs from TTC and CTFN. And so it's gotten to this stage, and it's not by any means all of my writing at all. It's really a combination of many inputs from bureaucrats, from technicians, and all the way up to our political leadership. So I'll just review it in a higher, like in a context level, rather than reviewing the language at this point. Overall, this is a letter that's trying to deliver certain messages, and in a context. So it needs to be thought of that way, I think, and question ourselves if one, the context is accurate, correct, or powerfully stated, and secondly, is the message getting through? And I am concerned that it's a bit long, so I acknowledge that fact. But the messages were, to summarize, that first of all, we're dealing with the collective 3 First Nations with a shared history, a shared culture, and working together, just to underscore that message. Secondly, it was to summarize the depth and magnitude of the experience of these 3 First Nations, both in BC and Yukon and even beyond in some respects, which is very, it's complex, it's very diversified, but it's really also a strong message from my perspective. It speaks to, if I was sitting on the other side, in Canada, BC, Yukon, you'd say, wow, like we can engage here in a very meaningful way, and we better take this seriously, if we're not already. We also wanted to demonstrate this willingness to work collaboratively with governments, with each other, and at all levels. And this is about going forward with a vision, and the experience demonstrates that you don't have to make the arguments, it's simply look at the experience. There's also the message that collectively there's a capacity and a willingness to define and defend their rights, both Aboriginal treaty rights, um, either in negotiations, which has been, from my experience, with TTC, that's their preference. But if you have to, if it's important and the government's not listening, quite prepared to challenge things in court, either as an interim step or final steps. So that's a proven quantity, it's a proven dynamic throughout. And then part of the message too was to speak to the vision that you have, and to articulate it, describe it, a vision for the future, working with all levels of government, and defining and relying on those relationships. And in doing so, both rely on and build on and enhance the principles that we become fairly familiar with, the free and prior informed consent, the honor of the crown, use of jurisdiction, recognition of inherent rights, and in the end, if you have to, the rule of law, including the traditional Indigenous laws. Something that's just starting to really evolve in the incorporation and recognition and enforcement of Indigenous laws. We also wanted to focus attention on certain urgent needs for interim protection and management measures. I've just been listening for 20 minutes, and I've heard that that theme come up in your discussions today. And so we provided concrete examples of concerns, suggestions, and really sort of evidence of a lack of cooperation, a lack of development, a lack of progress on those interim protections. Another message was underscoring, our collective seriousness. This is reached a level of concern that cannot be ignored, cannot be shoved under the carpet anymore. So there are some statements made, towards the end of the letter about the seriousness of that, and we're going to take steps to require prior consent, and including notice to the public, etc. Those kinds of assertive steps, but in a positive way, not necessarily having to create legal actions and circumstances for legal actions, trying to explain that in a collaborative government-to-government relationship, this can be done without having to resort to legal battles. And then the final little message was just reminding government that this isn't just a political letter. This isn't a political request. They have legal obligations. And those legal obligations require them to do something. And we're inviting them to demonstrate their political will by giving mandates to their negotiators that fulfill the recognition and assertion of rights as demonstrated in all of the term sheets at the negotiation table. But this is bigger than just the negotiation tables. So there's a bit of a summary from where I sit from my perspective, and I guess we're just open for comments or questions. I'm not here as a lawyer because I'm not called in BC, so that's why I've asked Dave and Darren are online, so they can also address any legal questions you might have. Thank you.
Where is that agenda? There it is. Does anybody have anything to say or additions or Mark? No? Because you're also on the agenda for this part.
What's that?
You're also on this here part here? Like if you wanted to, you and Dave, if you wanted to speak towards it?
Yeah, sure. And I look forward to questions. I think Stephen touched on it, and look to Dave and Darren also for some input. And it goes back to something, TJ, that you said, is that how do we protect our lands? I mean, when we talk about getting right down to it, it's about how do we protect the lands, how do we protect the animals, how do we protect what's happening on there? And at the negotiating table for the last 4 years, we've been, asking, if you wish, Canada and BC to say we need interim protection while, we're negotiating treaty. We need protection on the land because land dispositions are occurring, right? Things are happening. And there's really been not really a response. They sort of come back and say, tell us, which areas you have sacred sites that we can protect them. And we're saying it's bigger than that. And so when we were sitting there and we started saying, we've got to quit asking, right? We've got to quit asking. We have to start taking, as government, saying, this is not acceptable anymore. So that's what we did. We ran it past Executive Council in Carcross. This idea that we need to just inform governments and people that, there's treaty, there's this land is occupied. It's not that it's unoccupied, and to put it out there. And so Executive Council took it to our General Council, and our General Council is supporting it, saying, yes, we need to go in this direction, giving the Executive Council that's the direction to go in there. What they also said is, where's TRT? Right? Because the first letter we drafted, right, it was sort of from Carcross, like Carcross looking at a proclamation, they said it's stronger if it comes from Dakar. So when we talked with Teslin also said it's stronger, right? So Teslin looked at, participating on it. And so it really gets to the question, and it's not trying to put pressure on or anything like that, but if it's from DACA, and is it stronger to start saying, we're asserting our rights, right? So I think in terms of the leadership, you know, do we want to approach this where the three leaders are signatories to the letter, right? Or, you know, and we could do it different ways, but I think the direction from our general counsel is we got to start moving now. We can't keep asking and expecting our land to be protected from other governments, that we have to actually move in that direction. So I think that's the foundation. I think as Stephen laid it out, and we talked about that, is we want to do it in a good way. We don't want to threaten with court, all these types of things, but we do want to assert our rights. We do want to say, you know, we are governments. We are looking after this land. It's our responsibility as Creator has given it to us. And we want to do it in a good way, and we're willing to work with you as governments, whether it's through land use planning or whatnot, but we are doing it. To the other degree, we talked internally, because when we expect that we'll proclaim this, you know, or do a proclamation, and proclamation, I don't care what you call that, right? You know, because we started with the idea of an order in council. That's how Western governments do business. They get an order in council, which is like a decision document or something that says we're going to do this. So what we did is that we started saying, well, okay, let's just inform people that this is where we're at. And the staff are expecting is that if people want to apply for land disposition or hunting permits or these types of things, they can come and talk with us, right? It's not that we're, you know, saying no development, no, none of this. It's that you have to work with us, get consent. And we think the best way to work with it from our perspective is to start looking at how do we interact with the land? You know, how do we, you know, it's kind of like when we do the land process and water process, and that's how we started working with the bigger expansion of land becomes an important thing of how do we work with it, how do we develop it. And we all stopped there, but I think what's important is that background. I think Stephen did capture it. That's, you know, this letter can change. It's sort of open to it, but really what it is trying to say, how do we, you know, and do we want as three Dakar nations, governments, do we want to do this together? What's the best way to do it? And it's not trying to put pressure on anybody to, you know, to do one thing or other. It's how can we best do it, but do it in a united front type thing is where we're sort of, you know, the approach that we want to look at.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have anything to mention, speak of? Dave?
Thanks, everybody. The one thing that I think that should be really driven home is that this isn't a one-way letter. This is not a letter that, say, the Tlingit and the Yukon are using and trying to garner Taku River support in BC. What it is, it's a letter that works for two ways. It takes the three First Nations and it recognizes Taku River Tlingit's rights in the Yukon. That's why you see the way the letter is crafted. It's to bolster all of our rights, whether it's geographically located in British Columbia or in the Yukon. That's what the intent is, to form that nation. And I think that's where we need to really keep in the back of our mind that strength that you need, we can help provide in the Yukon, and it's vice versa. We need each other. And if we're going to survive as a distinct nation with distinct languages, then this is an obvious, in my mind, the right step, the right way to go. And thank you, Mark. I think you clarified it. Stephen, excellent job of walking through it. It comes right down to this is not a legal question. This isn't a political question. This is a unity question. And if we're going to go ahead, how are we going to go ahead?
Chantel? You're next. Okay.
Thank you. From the negotiator perspective, I know that spokesperson Ward will also be speaking from his perspective. But from the negotiator perspective, certainly Taku has concerns about the length of the letter as well. And it is a bit vague. We are hoping for something that would be a bit more scoped down and centered on a couple of specific issues or one specific issue. I know that on our work plan, we have fish and wildlife management. So talking about how do we protect our lands, that's a really big piece of it, and is a focused and specific concrete action item that we could agree on. And I will, of course, allow spokesperson Ward to respond formally for Taku. But on a letter like this, we would need to see something a little more scoped down. It is very encompassing. It captures a lot of content. And at this point, tying it to a work plan or something that's a little bit more achievable for Taku with this current government might be more suitable for our purposes for this right now. And so we have talked at the negotiator level about one of the most important pieces of the work plan. While they're all important, one of them that can be helpful in putting the other governments on notice, for example, of our intention to start collaborating to manage all of our traditional territory in the area of fish and wildlife. That's something really concrete. So of course, spokesperson Ward, I don't want to speak for you though.
So I have one person. So Bessie, and then spokesperson Ward.
Bessie Jimmy is my English name. Gudstutin klinget einach. Ach klar ka Lucy Wren du sagen. Ka ach ish. Jimmy Scotty du sagen. I was born and raised in Taku River, or Tushai River, where it runs into Taku Arm. I spent my winters there with my family trapping. And as far as back as I can remember, in 1954-55, my dad used to go to Atlin, and he used to spend sometime 2 weeks there, visit everybody. Teslin, same way. And since time began, our people were always together, and we can be strong when we're one. This is our land. Klingit ani away ati. Ach, I, do I, belongs to everybody. It's how we look after it and how we take care of it. Like when I was a kid, there was mining, everything tried to come in. But our people, we stood up to them. We put a stop to it. When are we going to start? I'm sure we can apply our own government laws from self-government and from our land claims agreement. It should benefit us when we're going into negotiating BC. You know, I don't believe in that border. There never was a border in my life. And even now I get bullheaded about it because I don't care for it. You know, if they hadn't put that border in there, we wouldn't have this trouble today, what we're going through, nation building. Our people should be strong, united, and together. And tell the government, we don't need yours no more. What about ours? How do you know we ain't right? We listened to you for 150 years. How do you know we ain't right for now? So you young kids gotta push it. Don't let them walk over you anymore. Just push it aside and go and do what you want to do and do it. What are they gonna do when it's already done? That's what I say. You protect the land, the water, the air, the trees, everything. If it ever come to hard times, that's our store out there. That's the one's going to take care of us. That's the way it was meant to be for thousands and thousands of years. So I say, unite, be strong, make the Daka backbone stronger and more vicious. Goodness cheese.
Thank you, Elder Bessie. John, spokesperson Walter.
Thank you. I appreciate all those comments. I'm right in line with what's being said. As Chantel pointed out, there are some things that maybe we want to look at, and I'm wondering if we can work directly with Stephen Phillips about that and just get it done ASAP, and probably get it out the door Tuesday, Wednesday maybe. We have our team ready to go to work on this. It's not something that's going to put one side a little bit heavy or get the wheel out of balance, but it would help us. I think the Tack River Clink is our thoughts and what we need to get done in British Columbia, the BC claim, and so on. The other thing I want to bring up though too is, you know, we always talk about borders and stuff, but we do have one right in our face. It's the BC Yukon border. You know, we want to respect one another's responsibilities close to home and all this. That's great. But I was at a CYFN meeting yesterday. There was a nice olive branch, you know, given to the Tack River Tlinkets, basically to join up as an associate member. So I'm looking at that. I'm going to discuss that with my directors as well, see where it hits the ground. But I don't think it's going to be very favorable not to be able to vote on something, not to have any decision making, but just to observe and stuff. So I'm hoping that there might be a way to open a door to explore that and discuss that further with the chiefs in the Yukon. So that otherwise we are catering to Yukon and BC government, actually, and recognizing those differences. You're south of the border, I'm sorry, you know, or whatever, but I think if we're going to do this, we might as well go to full 9 yards on it. So that's all I'm asking for, is a little time to discuss that one point. Maybe it'll go nowhere, I don't know. But at least if there's open opportunity to see where we can go with that, I would really appreciate it, Constitution. So can we work with Stephen or Stephen Phillips, or how we do this?
Can I clarify? So what I'm hearing you say is that we have direction from this forum for TRT to work on a letter with Stephen Phillips and the legal team, so we would have a draft for signature with all 3 nations next week by midway.
That's it.
Kunal.
Anybody else? Hello, Dwayne?
I'm just still a youngster compared to a lot of people around the table. I've been on executive council for 12 years now, so it's good to hear that that willingness for all 3 nations to work together. We've been hearing that message from our elders consistently over the years. I always go back to 2006 to the Dakka elders gathering in Carcross, Natasahini, where they talked about we're one nation, one inland Tlingit nation. There were elders from Atlin, Carcross, Teslin, and from the coast as well. And a lot of the elders aren't with us here today. They moved on, but they're still with us in spirit and still with us in their teachings. And I know they're smiling down on us as well, that to see us finally listening to them and working together as one inland Tlingit nation. I know with TTC and Carcross that we have seats at the table at the First Nation Summit down in BC. That I don't understand why TRT can't have a seat at CYFN, not as an associate member, but you have lands and rights in the Yukon, so we shouldn't let that colonial border divide us and just say you're an associate member. That you should be full, I believe you should be full members of CYFN. So whenever any government is talking to us, whether it's Yukon, British Columbia, Canada, even America, that when they're talk to the inland Tlingit Nation, that they know that they're talking to us as a unified inland Tlingit Nation, and that we'll equally stand up for our brothers and sisters, no matter what side of those colonial borders that they're on. And it's unlearning for us young folk to think outside of the Western way of thinking. We've been living under these colonial borders for so long that sometimes it's difficult to put them aside. But for our elders and those old ones who were brought up in the old way, that it's easy for them not to see those borders because those aren't our borders. So I really look forward to this strengthening Dakka Tlingit. And just recently, the Supreme Court ruled in Canada that even international borders can't cut off people, Indigenous people, from their rights. When the Supreme Court ruled that First Nation in Washington state still had full rights in Canada, that international border did not cut their rights off. And the same applies to us, that whether it's BC or Yukon border or Alaska border, that no colonial border cuts our rights off, and that we got to stand as one. And we always think about what Ted Hunch would always tell us at General Council: unite and become one. And so it's good to see that happening today. To get you on.
Who made this? Oh, this is just, I should have went through it with you. Okay, any other questions or concerns in regards to the assertion letter? Can you repeat that?
Essentially, the letter addresses the need that we see for us to be consulted and, to be informed of what's going on in our traditional territories in British Columbia, to be included in some of the things that are being planned or being done, and be given the opportunity to have control over the things that are going on, like through the game guardianship. I look at the game guardianship that we have within in Teslin here, when it comes to our traditional territory within the Yukon, and the experience that we've been able to gain from just doing that work, and looking at how we collaborate with the conservation officers in this area here, and just being able to be given that opportunity to do the very same thing within in the northern British Columbia in regards to looking at how we as mentioned earlier, protect the land and really look at protecting the wildlife that are there, and ensuring that we always think about our future generations and being able to have things in place for them. And I think definitely the other aspect or the other element to all of this work that is happening now is that, we're all getting older now, and I think really definitely want to give thanks to Yasan and to Chano for, their willingness to continue on with the work that we're doing in this area and other areas. And because we really rely on the experience that they've been able to gain through the negotiations with the land claim agreement in the Yukon, and being able to look at just the significance of that alone in terms of what they were able to achieve during their time. And I think about that, and I remember years ago when I was working with Chano in regards to serving him as serving as his deputy, and being told when we were sitting in negotiations with the BC government, and them telling us that what we were able to achieve in the Yukon we'll never achieve in BC. But I think since that time, a lot of, as Gaston has mentioned, a lot of things have changed over the course of time, and that no longer can be their bottom line. And I really strongly believe that we are in a good place. The letter, in a sense, captures all of those aspects that I'm speaking of. And I strongly believe that the experience and the dedication that our past leaders have had, and the vision that they have for how we need to look at protecting what we have today is a part of all of that. And but I really I'm looking forward to the work that's going to be done over the next couple of days in terms of looking at how we can make some adjustments to this letter. As you will note that we have signed it and signed on to it because we essentially agreed with the content of the letter. And I think if there's an ability to maintain what's within it and still meet some of what TRT and spokesperson John want to see addressed, then we definitely will work with that as well. And so I wanted to thank you all for taking the time to go through this, and really I think it's important, and give Stephen thanks for the work that he's done in this area. Gamalchish.
Thank you, Chief Morse. So we have a couple more things on the agenda, and Chantel will address those.
Thanks, everyone. So we had on the agenda, we had a bunch of items under the assertion of rights letter, and we now have an action item that we've already discussed. So we've got what we need for that point. Yay. Looking forward to that intensive work. So we have run out of time because lunch is ready now. But the item that I wanted to draw your attention to, we will be discussing scheduling, and so a leadership meeting will go offline and discuss the next dates for that, as well as possibilities and dates for our next On the Land gathering. But the final item is the Nakana Trail Walk. So the dates on there are actually wrong. I apologize for that. The dates are actually July 12th to the 19th. And the TRTFN Lands Department, along with our Land Guardian program, are undertaking a hike during that date range. So the hike is intended to be a longer one so it can be accessible for people who may have more difficulties traveling the 2 to 3 day rough terrain. And so it'll be broken down over half days during that week. But it seems like a very good opportunity for our people to coordinate. And if there are people from TTC and CTFN who would like to join, particularly youth, it would be a really wonderful opportunity to coordinate our teams. So I'm flagging those dates because I've heard it mentioned. I've heard the importance of culture, gathering, on the land, language, and I also know that Children of the Taku, as our language revitalization society, is also doing a language immersion. And so while I am not clear on what the availability or accessibility of that program is, I do want to draw your attention to that, because if our coordination efforts are able to support that kind of work, I'm already hearing it brought up a lot. So there is a venture going on for the end of June, which would be a Tlingit immersion camp, as well as a joint hike started by the Lands Department and supported by the Land Guardian program of TRT, and that's July 12th to 19th for the hike. So that's also a reason to celebrate, and if you see Children of the Taku wandering around here this afternoon, please feel free to speak to them.
Okay, thank you. Any closing comments before lunch?
I want to say I'm just really excited about. Definitely support that, and I think that's such an incredible opportunity for our citizens, and I'm really looking forward to that. But it also is related in some ways to what I also been thinking about too. Is like every year we purchase salmon that has been harvested in the Taku River area, and like I know that I often think that why can't we create an opportunity where we can work together with TRTFN and look at how we can maybe do the very same thing, but do it in a different fashion. And I think that's something that's worthwhile discussing, because I know that we have one of our citizens, Mike Smart, that used to spend some time on I think it might be the Nakana, I'm not exactly sure, but I think about these kinds of things that are very exciting and a benefit for all. And I wanted to know that once we start doing these kinds of things, then we can begin to look at reopening the trail that's at the head of our lake here, and going going to reconnect that. And I think there's such an awesome opportunity, and I can't help but feel excited about it all. So I'm so glad that that this is being done. Thank you very much. Going with cheese.
Thank you, Chief Morris. Spokesperson Ward, and then Alex.
Thank you again. I'm glad there's going to be interest in that trail. I think I was given my name because of my involvement with that trail over the years. Dayik means right on the trail. Sam's right here. He's the one who gave it to me at his mom's potlatch. So, anyways, I hope that I'm involved in that somehow. You know, the last few years I haven't been, but I've been consistently working on that for well over 20 years. Getting small grants, taking kids out, cutting and teaching them how to get ready for the workforce and so on. And it's all been so interesting to watch our kids grow that way. And I really want to thank some of the comments, you know, again, you know, someone mentioned about, you know, the First Nations Summit in Vancouver supported TTC and CTFN fully. Lock, stock, and barrel. Plus you're given a voting card when you enter the door. So you have just as much say in British Columbia, and you currently do, because you're registered with the summit. And so you can vote just as well as Newtall or any group in British Columbia. And I think it's just kind of fair. They don't recognize this border, the First Nations Summit, nor does the Union of BC Indian Chiefs or the Leadership Council in British Columbia, for that matter. I'm pretty sure BCAFN is in the same regard as well. So maybe that's something we could talk about with the Yukon AFN rep. You know, just get some thoughts about that idea and see where that goes. And I'm really thankful. We'll try to expedite this as quick as we can. We have one good, strong technical person at home that can really help us with this, and we'll work through Chantel.
Thank you, Spokesperson Ward. Alex?
I'll just keep it short. I know the Nakanow walk, I'll definitely be going on that and taking my kids. So Eric, I'm in July 12th to 19th, I won't be in the office. My cell phone's not gonna work either, so just so I'm putting you on notice so you know where I'm at. But the one thing I do really want to stress about this is, I mean, we've talked about land, but we haven't talked about meeting out on the land. Wherever the borders are, I mean, those aren't my borders, they're not our borders. And as far as what Mark was saying about going, we need to have a talk sooner than later. Because I mean, as soon as the borders open, I mean, I'm gone. I mean, like I've told Richard this morning, I mean, if I don't want to be found on my land, I won't be. But I mean, I want to go back to where we came from and learn that history and breathe it and be part of it. And just to be there, I mean, to me, it'd be very powerful. I mean, even being here on this beautiful land, or even in Atlan, I mean, the lake's not opening up quick enough, so I might come over and visit for a couple weeks with my boat until the lake opens up or whatever. But I mean, it's we have to start doing that stuff. I mean, I'm trying to get my children out on the land more, and I mean, I will be talking to my executive youth council members, so we do have participation at that Nakanow walk and sharing those walks that our ancestors have done. Even talk to our Renewable Resource Council about keeping that trail from Atlan to Teslin open. Skidoo Trail or whatever, but I mean, at least keep it open, and that way we can start going out and building camps along the way and having that traditional gatherings where we used to, a number of years ago, I mean, not so formalized, we're doing it as clinkets, whereas we're living our healthy lifestyles that we're doing what we used to do. I mean, it's a little bit faster with skidoos, not snowshoes, but we got to do that. So just say Guns Cheese to Carcross Tagish people for hosting this, and thanks to everybody online, and safe travels.
Great, thank you. So I too, Linda, would like to, I look forward to having our joint clan meetings. I think they're going to be interesting, just to share stories, just to sit down and enjoy one another's company. It would be nice to sit down with Ishkatan from TRT and TTC. And then going on this trail hike, I really hope I can also make it because it sounds very interesting. I look forward to it. I'm not quite sure. And thank everybody for coming. It was nice for everybody to come and enjoy our hospitality. I don't know if anybody else has anything to say. Any closing comments? TJ?
Just a joke.
Okay.
Okay, this guy comes up to a stop sign, looks both ways, drives through. Wow, here comes a cop. Cop pulls him over and he says, through that stop sign, you didn't stop. And the guy says, oh, he says, I came there and I looked both ways. He said, there's nobody there, so I just rolled through. The guy says, well, I'm sorry, can I have your license? And he kept, oh, come on, man, it was just easy. There was nobody around. Finally, the cop says, sir, can you get out of your car, please? He said, can you come to the back of the car? So he goes to the back of the car. Cop comes behind him with his nightstick, starts wailing on him. Bang, bang. The guy goes, stop, stop. The cop says, should I stop or should I just slowly roll through?
All right.
Okay. You haven't got caught at the stop sign, eh? Okay.
That was a good one.
We still don't have enough stop signs up here, that's why.
This is telling jokes.
Nope.
Your leadership for allowing us to be able to meet on your lands and to your citizens. Just so grateful for that, and I know that we've all, both of us in many ways, and all of us in a sense, have experienced some hardships over the last while, and I think a lot of these kinds of discussions really help to bring up our spirits and really help us to be able to look at how we really need to be able to move on. And so I really want to take this opportunity to thank you. And just in regards to what John was talking about, how the BCFN really has no limitations in terms of how it works with other nations. And I know that we just yesterday, actually, we were going through the Yukon region AFN terms of reference, and there was mention of TRTFN as well as part of that document. And so I think definitely you're in line with where the thinking is at on how we really don't consider borders other than looking at the working relationships that need to be and are required to be maintained. So just to say that as well. So thank you very much. Kamachish, everyone.
Yes, thank you, Cheese. Uncle Sam would like to have a word. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. And since you started telling jokes, I might as well tell one too. And a lot of you, I know a lot of you travel on the highway. Any of you ever see a crow being bumped on the road? Well, crow, you watch for a crow anytime you're traveling. He's always got something to eat off the road or whatever. But you never ever see him get bumped. You know why? Because you always have one guarding for him on a big high tree to warn him. So he warned this guy down below. He says, "Caw coming."
So given what's just happened, I think we should make an addition to this trail walk and get some extra money, fly some elders, old stories and jokes. Make it a part of the program.